and I want to ask a question, I guess, regarding what you point out here, which is you say the human world is in ruins. It will not get better. The sooner we can withdraw from it, the better. Timothy Leary was right when he urged young people to drop out in 1966. His message is all the more profoundly true today. Life in urban industrial society has no future. The modern world has failed on all levels. Capitalism and industrialism cannot be reformed. The gods have fled. Whether or not we can become completely independent of industrial society is irrelevant. The fact that it is difficult and perhaps impossible to utterly separate should not be used as an argument against withdrawal. Connection to the gods and the land is ultimately more important than material self-sufficiency. To whatever extent you are compelled and able, withdraw from society and make the home the center of your life. I think this is an interesting thing that you bring up because you're kind of saying, maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of people who are writing about, and the sort of the depravity or the hollowness of industrial modern life, of our technological society, there is this sense of like we need to organize to resist it, to undermine it, whether it's
Sure.
whatever strain of that you want to go in. But basically, like we need to, attack the infrastructure. We need to, do all these
Sure.
things, right? And I'm not
Sure.
saying that you're not saying that in maybe other work, but in this particular essay, you're kind of saying turn your back on this society because it's not going to serve you. It's not going to be fixed. It's not going to be reformed. This is, to use this term, the logical conclusion of this entire experiment that we've been a part of, and it's not going to get any better. So the best place to dwell is in the home, and we have to first make that home to make that possible. I don't want to put words in your mouth or to assume what you believe, in any of those things I just said, but just kind of reading this piece, there's something a bit, kind of took me a little bit aback because again, like I said, most people that are talking about returning to some sort of pre-industrial, pre-modern, pre-capitalist, pre-Christian, whatever, way of being, way of understanding and inhabiting the world, there is this idea of like we have to do this all in sort of some collective sense, but you're kind of pointing to more of a individual choice, and I could be wrong in saying this, but an individual choice we all have to make that is in light of what is currently unfolding on this planet. Would you say that my assessment or my understanding is correct, or maybe missing certain key elements?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It's absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I've come to these. I've come to where I am as a person, like everybody, through a kind of meandering path, and for most of my adult life, I think I would have been horrified to hear myself say that. But that's no longer the case. It's taken me a long time. Or a relatively long time, or whatever. But it's taken me some time. But I've absolutely come to the conclusion that reform is impossible. As I've said, that this society cannot and should not be saved, and that our efforts would be better placed doing other things. And the suggestion that I'm putting forth in this is make a home for yourself. And I recognize also that making a home for oneself can mean a lot of different things. So I'm not trying to be prescriptive in that, but absolutely my suggestion here is that maybe we've got better things to do with our time than to try to save the society.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm coming to this place maybe personally as well where I feel like that is at least, if not the whole prescription, it is a part of it. It's like there has to be a base, I guess, or a place to do our work from, and having a home is, as we're kind of framing it right now, is really the first major step in that process. Yeah. Yeah. And
I mean,
go on. No, you go on. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say that, it's such a truism that the earth is our home. One hears that all the time, and one is kind of very comfortable with that formulation. But ironically, as we've both observed, nowadays one very rarely meets somebody whose idea of home is meaningful to them. So that clearly that's a problem. We we've spent, I don't know, 30 years, maybe even less, seriously wrestling with the idea of destroying the Earth, and yet I don't think very many people have a clear sense of why it should be saved or what that means that it should be saved. People are very good at responding to things that are kind of immediately threatening them, which is obviously important, and that's why if you're under attack, resistance is of course understandable, and I'm obviously not suggesting that those who are attacked should not resist, but it's always been very funny to me that here we are saying that the Earth is our home, so we should protect it. But if our home, as we know it, is just this meaningless place where we dump our possessions, then why is it important to save that? That doesn't sound very, that doesn't sound very valuable, right? So I think that that's why I think that really, the problem is a spiritual one. The problem is one that's really about the home and about that connection to the Earth, and that's something that the individual has to sort out for themselves.